Security has been tightened ahead of the funeral of 7 Christians killed by ISIL gunmen. The victims were returning from a baptism when they were assaulted. The attack happened in Minya province, which lies south of the capital, Cairo. ISIL has claimed responsibility for the attack. A similar attack in the same region in 2017 left at least 28 Coptic Christians dead. ISIL claimed responsibility for previous attacks on Christians in Egypt. Well, let's get you more on this now. We're now joined by CGTN's Adel Al-Makhraoui. He's live with us in Alexandria. Adel, ISIL, as we know, has claimed responsibility for Friday's attack, an attack that has been condemned both within the country and in the region. Just give us an update on the very latest.
Security forces are in chase looking for the perpetrators. They have blocked 4 main off-road deserts, roads known to tribes that connects 4 different governorships in Upper Egypt. They believe that if the perpetrators are going to leave the site of the incident, they will be using an unknown desert road. That's why they have intensified that search, and they are downsizing the radius search until they try to suffocate them or limit their movement to a certain spot. Hopefully that would finally lead to their capture. The perpetrators are believed to belong to the new group that claimed affiliation to ISIL, and it's basically based in Upper Egypt. It calls itself the Upper Egypt province, and a reflection to ISIL's branch in Sinai, which was also named Sinai province. Meanwhile, Egyptian Coptic Church all over the country have been holding a symbolic funeral, and one of them is actually hosting the actual funeral of those killed. Hundreds are there to pay their respects and prayers until the funeral proceedings are over, and they will probably last about an hour or so from now.
And Adel, when you say that those responsible for this attack are a splinter group of ISIL, as you say, from Upper Egypt, it's rather worrying. We know, of course, that Egyptian forces have claimed victory over militants in the country. Over 400 militants have been killed, many others arrested. But this doesn't seem to be enough to deter these militants from continuing with such attacks or even stopping ISIL from growing.
It's definitely, Lindy, a challenge, but it also doesn't mean that ISIL is growing. We're not seeing massive tactics or explosive devices or master planning being happen. This is a bunch of militants who have a gun and open fire at a bus, which is really not something very easy to handle. And again, they were not in the church itself. So the church itself was not, or the monastery to be specific, was not attacked. They were on their way on and from the monastery, and this is where the attack happened. So it basically means that Egyptian security forces should secure every square meter of roads all over the country, which is mainly an impossible mission to do. However, security has been quite tight at around Egypt's Coptic Church. ISIL, as you said, have been targeting Coptic Christians for several years now. We've seen bloody attacks. We've seen suicide bombers detonating themselves inside churches. This kind of horrific acts and massive breach of security in churches has not been seen in some time, and the authorities believe that the measures they're taking right now will give main protection at the churches and their vicinity. So they are trying to do their best. They have definitely downsized the capabilities of ISIL, mainly, of course, in the Sinai. The Sinai is an area more or less secured all around by Egyptian military forces and border security, with exception to few tunnels that the authorities have not discovered yet. This is the main source of fueling the Sinai with weapons. But on the other hand, if we're talking about the western and southern part of Egypt, they have over 1,000 long of unfenced border between Egypt and Libya. And we know, of course, the instability in Libya has been fueling ISIL and other militant and terrorist groups there. even in the south particularly, which is quite, or at least more close to the where the incident happened in southern Libya, ISIL has recently took control of a city there, which means it has a ground to do trainings and develop whatever machinery and IEDs and provides explosive devices it can. So it is quite a huge risk and challenge, and the Egyptian authorities are trying to do their best.
And perhaps just quickly explain for us, if you can, why it is that Coptic Christians have become a major target for Islamist militants, and what authorities are doing to protect this religious community.
Coptic Christians, for ISIL's ideology, are believed to be infidels and therefore dispensable. And that's why there have been, for them or for their militants as well, from their extreme and also wrongful interpretation of Islam, that killing them is not hindered or forbidden in Islam, which it's a major ideological challenge that the authorities have been trying, and religious clerics here have been trying to counter with moderate Islamic teachings. But at the same time, ISIL believes that it was Coptic Egyptians, the Christian minority, that supported the army's ousting of Islamist President Mohammed Morsi in 2013, and therefore they believe they are the enemy of the Islamic State, as they call themselves, or any Islamic ideology, and therefore they have been clearly targeted in ISIL statements. ISIL continues every once in a while to renew the threat to Egypt's Christian minority, and it has been holding attacks, as I told you earlier, horrific attacks inside churches, and the recent one that we've just seen in Minya. The authorities have done what they can. At least they have protected thousands of churches all over the country. Now every church has a buffer zone through which no one can enter until he passes through a security checkpoint. He gets frisked. There are bags, x-rays at the entrances of this buffer zone, and of course inside the churches and around that vicinity, closed circuit cameras have been installed in that area. So almost every single church in Egypt is heavily secured. But other than that, beyond the vicinities of these churches, it is an extremely challenging task to secure every single Egyptian and the Christian minority from Egypt, which they vary from 10 to 15%, and of course are everyone. So it is quite a challenge to give such a security cover to everyone in the country.
Yes, indeed, a very serious challenge. Thank you so much, Adel Al-Maghribi, joining us there live from Alexandria in Egypt.